Today on Gun Talk Nation, we're talking with Nathan Engelking from CrossBreed Holsters and Innate Tactical Holsters. Known Nathan for a long time, and he's a gun guy, but he's also a real marketing guru, and he's really good at dealing with these tech companies that are trying to censor the world of guns. And we're going to dive into some of his secrets. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Armscor, Safariland, We Save Lives, Springfield Armory, and Remington Ammunition. All right, welcome in. This is Gun Talk Nation. We're just going to jump right into it. And today, our special guest of the day is a man who needs actually a lot of introduction because none of you guys know who the heck he is. Nathan Engelging from CrossBreed Holsters, Innate Tactical. Am I saying that right?
Innate. So MTC Holsters is our parent company. And
Gotcha.
So MTC has had CrossBreed Holsters for a long time. And then at the end of 2019, we were contacted by the Nates from Nate Squared. And, you know, they really were kind of looking, they had some new ideas and stuff they wanted to do outside of the firearms industry. And we had been friends with those guys forever. And so it worked really well. So, you know, we purchased Innate Tactical. There was no crazy forced buyout or anything, like just a bunch of guys that were friends and got along really well, and they knew they could trust us with the brand. And so we rebranded that into just Innate Tactical last year. And we've actually gone through and redone a lot of the products that they have to kind of bring back some of the original things that the company had done that customers want. And then now we're actually starting to roll out a lot of new products with that lineup as well. So it's going to be a really cool brand here pretty soon.
It's awesome. So, I mean, people know CrossBreed Holsters because you guys have been around quite a while. And frankly, you guys are probably some of the more savvy marketers out there as far as holster companies go, because the holster company world is interesting. There's a lot of them. There's like, I don't know, 200, maybe I'm way under that, how many different holster companies there are. But you guys are, well, I should say we've worked with CrossBreed for a long time. And am I correct in that you guys started the whole hybrid holster Kydex leather thing with Mark?
Yeah, so Mark was really one of the big founders of the hybrid holster. There was one that was out there that really Mark just had to kind of tweak and really get it perfect. So that's what turned into the SuperTuck holster. That is still our flagship holster. Mark released that 16 years ago, actually this year. So that product that's still our top seller has been around for 16 years, which frankly is a lot longer than most of our competition have been in business.
Yeah. And the reason why it works so well, why it's so popular, is because it's a good balance of comfort, because the leather backing spreads out the pressure points of the gun. So it's very comfortable to wear all day long. But for a lot of us, and I'm included in this, I prefer a Kydex feel for the gun coming in, coming out. And so it's a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so before kind of the hybrid holster market, a lot of what people were buying were just all leather holsters. They were very comfortable. They were fairly discreet. But the problem was that you just didn't get a lot of retention in there. And whenever you drew that weapon, reholstering could be an issue, things like that. So Mark was really able to fix that problem by incorporating that hybrid shell onto the front of it. So you've still got exactly what you said, a really nice supple leather backer that spreads the weight of the firearm out across the side of your body. But whenever you go to reholster and you go to draw, it's going to be nice and clean. You get that little bit of click as the trigger guard drops in, so you know that it's really in there good.
Where are things going? You guys have been very good about bringing out new products and offering people not just the one way to carry, but a lot of different ways, and kind of going, hey, concealed carry guy, gal, we'll give you tons of options because we understand everybody has their preferred method. We're seeing a lot of changes in the way people seem to be carrying. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely over the last couple of years, the appendix carry has become much more popular. I think in particular, there's some really good shooters out there who can show how fast it is. And so CrossBreed's had a couple of different appendix options for a while. Without like giving too much away, I think that you're going to see even more of those options coming from CrossBreed in the next, few months. And so we're really excited. It's some of the new stuff we're working on is a little bit different than where you've traditionally seen CrossBreed. So we really want when that customer comes to the page and they trust CrossBreed, they've known CrossBreed forever, they know that we produce a good product, that we've got, some of the best customer service in the industry, that if they're really looking for that very specific thing, that we've still got an option available for them.
How is a new holster born? I mean, how do you, because I've been involved in some of these where you go, hey, there's a new one coming, but then it feels like, well, it's just a holster, and you go, nah, it's not ready yet. We're developing it. We want to make sure it's right. We want to make sure when it launches, it's perfect. And I'm like, dude, how can it take that long?
Yeah,
to
it's
develop it?
crazy. It's crazy, especially when you try to start stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit. We've really challenged our people here to come up with ideas that are different, not just from what CrossBreed does, but what from the rest of the industry does. And to be like the exact project I know you're talking about, we started that like 4 years ago, and I think we're on like rendition 17 or something of it. And it's really great. But what we realized was that the reason there was this kind of void in the market was because nobody could figure out how to do it. And so, that's a product that we're still developing to this day. And frankly, through that, though, the great part was that we identified some other areas where we could make kind of similar products that would still work really well, that we could get out a lot quicker. And I think those are going to be some of the things you see coming up. But, a lot of what we do here, in particular, like with the Reckoning holster, that holster was 100% driven from just customer request. We pay a lot of attention to what the customers are saying, what the customers are buying. We pay attention to what our competitors are doing. Like, oh, okay, like I understand why they did that. Like that adds comfort here, that adds security there. Is that something we can incorporate into our holster? Is our holster just not a good fit for that? Is that something that they're just going to be better at? And so, like with the Reckoning holster, that's exactly what we did. We had customers asking for adjustable retention, so we designed it with multiple places for adjustable retention. We saw that the whole concept of having an extra mag carrier attached to the holster, was becoming very popular. One of the things we noticed at the time, though, was that the mag carrier was very rigid. It didn't have much flex. And so we took some existing materials that we have here, and we're able to design that to where ours has a lot of flex to it. So if you're maybe you're a little skinnier guy, you can get that flex without it, really like being bulky and uncomfortable inside your waistband. But outside of that, like a lot of it really just evolves around what the customers are asking for. We could talk about all the new stuff under the sun and all the cool hit things that are out there, but at the end of the day, like the number one thing is just taking care of those existing customers. And if they're asking for something, then we'd be foolish not to answer that request.
Well, and then the next question people say is, why don't you make a holster for this gun or that gun? I know you guys are pretty good about trying to stay on top of it and work with several gun companies very closely, even before the gun comes out. But if there's a new gun coming out, how does that come about to say, okay, we're going to make a holster for it? And then like, which holster do you make?
Yeah. So, there's a couple of things to consider. First of all, we've probably got the world's largest collection of blue guns and mold guns here, just because of all the fits we offer. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, when you're talking about that one gun now has 6 different laser options, and it's got 2 different light options, and so one turns into 15 like real quick. And so we do work with a lot of companies to make sure that when they have new guns coming out, we'll evaluate each one. Frankly, technology has really started to change that. In the past, when a new gun was being released, you'd have to wait for it to come out, and then you were trying to get on a list to actually get one, and there's always supply and demand issues with them actually trying to get samples to you. And now, a lot of times we'll say, hey, just send us a CAD file, and we'll toss it into a 3D printer, and 6-8 hours later, we've got a mold basically that's at least good enough for us to identify like where the problems are going to be, what holsters we can use. And then from there, we'll start working on a list, we'll check it. And then when the real gun comes in, we'll just confirm our fits, and then we're ready to go. And that, kind of speed of CrossBreed when it comes to that is a really big advantage for us. And frankly, that's why you see a lot of gun companies reach out to us and want to work with us on that, because they know how quickly we can turn those things around.
That's cool. So you guys are actually taking the CAD file and 3D printing basically a blue gun, a
Yeah.
plastic gun.
Yeah, I mean, the material obviously in the 3D printing isn't up to speed with like what we would use for production, of course. But we can usually get 4 or 5 different presses out of it before we start to see it warp. And so that it's really just for us to be able to get our hands on it. Okay, this thing's got some kind of crazy slide release on it that we've got to accommodate. So we can start kind of figuring out how we're going to handle that. And then from there, yeah, I mean, you test fit, you make sure it's good to go. We usually will take those holsters and send them back to the manufacturers of the pistol just to kind of let them see what we're working with. And then from there, you just wait till you get that real gun in to confirm fit, and you're up and going. It's really cool how that process has come along. Like I said, it used to every time there'd be a new gun, I'm like, oh, that's great, but like hopefully 3 months after it's launched, we've actually got one. And now months ahead of time we've got them. And it's crazy to see all the new pistols that are getting ready to launch, that are coming out over the next few months. And it's like, what's interesting about that too is that the firearms manufacturers have realized that having holsters and accessories available at the time of the launch of the pistol helps sells the pistol. I'll never forget, like I worked at a gun shop when I was a much younger man, and the XD came out, and it was like, oh, it's so great. It's going to be my duty weapon. I'm going to get one. There were no holsters available. And so it was like, well, that's great. Like, I'm glad you've got that gun. And 6 months from now, hopefully something will be available for it. And so I think like a lot of these companies, like I said, they've just realized that, if they work with other companies ahead of time, the accessories are ready, the different mags, aftermarket sights, things like that. If those are ready at launch, they're going to sell a lot more of those pistols.
Yeah, especially on pistols, you gotta have a holster available when it comes out, because otherwise, if it's a carry gun, I mean, you're kind of buying a gun and it's just going to sit there in the house and not be able to carry it. Nathan, I got a couple companies I got to thank for making this show possible. Smith & Wesson just keeps doing it. Their latest new gun is the M&P 12. This is a pump bullpup shotgun. It has 2 magazine tubes, so it holds plenty of ammo. In fact, it'll hold an entire box of mini shells, 20 rounds of mini shells. It's a 12 gauge pump, and it's pretty cool. I've shot it and I've really enjoyed it. Check out the new M&P 12 from Smith & Wesson. Also, Safariland. Safariland. They make a large variety of accessories for shooters, but in particular, holsters. They have their 575 holster, which is kind of their newest. And the cool part about it is it fits a lot of different makes and models. Those slimline Glocks, SIGs, Springfields, those types of things. And we actually have a deal with Safariland right now. So if you enter Gun Talk 20 Q3 at checkout, you'll get 20% off. Go check out Safariland holsters. Also, Springfield Armory, the Springfield Hellcat. There's a reason why so many people keep talking about this gun. And now they've got the Hellcat. They have the Hellcat RDP, Rapid Defense Pistol, which is a little bit souped up package. They have a comp on the end and some other things. They also have their new Hex Optics, which are really nice and kind of giving you more options for the red dot category. Check out Springfield Armory. All right. So Nathan, I mentioned that you're kind of a marketing wizard when it comes to the gun world. And I think people are somewhat familiar with our challenges in the gun world of dealing with the digital side of things. You think about Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, Apple, all these companies who they do accept advertising, but it's really challenging. And the approach for some folks in the gun world has basically been like, well, we just can't do it. It's just not going to happen. You seem to be one that is willing to see if there is a side door or a back door or another way to get this done. I'm sure you have some stories of working this and working with some of these companies to try to let them put your message out there.
Yeah. So, I'm hard to kill. We'll just say that. I don't give up easy. You're right. It's a lot of these advertisers. There are some advertisers that we've had that have just come out and flat out said, like, we're not interested in anything gun or accessory related. And it's, being in the accessory part of the business is actually a lot easier than the firearms and ammunition side. It's just virtually impossible. which is pretty sad, because a lot of times the rules and regulations they throw at you are things like, well, we don't want someone to see a gun if they're not interested in guns. And I'm
Isn't
like,
that
well,
amazing?
what you could do is maybe ask them if they wanted to see guns in their advertising. Like that seems like a pretty easy fix. So, Facebook in particular, there's a lot going on there. That's been one that companies have struggled back and forth with forever. We get contacted by companies that we work with all the time, like, hey, my ads got shut down. What do I do? And, as much as I would love to sit here and just rail on Facebook, a lot of times what you're seeing is they rely so much on these bots and this AI to be able to look at the images and say whether or not it's something being sold that's not allowed. And,
Yeah.
I don't know what the percentage of those times are when those bots are incorrect, but I know our ads get shut down constantly. And it used to be a big struggle. And you would fight and argue and explain. And then finally, a couple of years ago, they explicitly put holsters as an exemption into their rules. And I'm like, okay, like we're golden now. We got this. Within a month, they were shut down again. And so the bad part is there used to be some people that worked at Facebook who were very pro Second Amendment, and I'm sure that there still are people there. It's just unfortunate that whenever one of the best ways I had it put to me was Facebook isn't worried about how to make more money. They're worried about how to keep Mark Zuckerberg out of being in front of like in front of Congress testifying.
Right.
That's what they were worried about at the time. And so it's luckily we got to a point where we started to figure out some of the kind of back channels to be able to communicate and things like that. And I've been a big advocate for sharing that information out with other advertisers. The only way we're going to take care of our customers is not just to just admit defeat and roll over and just say, well, we're not going to do this anymore. We have to show them that there are law-abiding gun owners out there who they want to see this content here, and we're not just going to give up. You're not going to just bully us around. And I will say, like in particular, we've been assigned like a concierge for our account, and it's probably has a lot to do with our ad spend. And this guy's fantastic. He's from Missouri. He takes great care of us. He calls once a month. If there's an issue, I pick up the phone. He goes in. He takes care of it. And so I think there's a lot of good people there. I think that frankly the system is just structured in a way that is really difficult for firearms manufacturers and ammo manufacturers, and one could say that that's on purpose. One could say that they don't necessarily want you there, so they're going to kind of make you jump through some hoops. My experience is a little bit of that, and a little bit of just really having a system that's not fantastic, that just doesn't identify those things. And then you get into some real creative stuff. Whenever the Derek Chauvin trial had came out and they were waiting on essentially the jury to come back to say, guilty, not guilty, they shut down every accessory ad. So even companies who were explicitly allowed to advertise, they're like, no, we're not going to accept any advertising on those right now. And I don't really know. I don't know if they thought that, like, well, if 50 more CrossBreed holsters sell today, then we're gonna, the city's gonna burn. Like,
Right.
I mean, it was
right.
kind of
What's the logic
ridiculous.
there?
Yeah, and in talking with them, like, I mean, I understood what they were. I comprehended what they were trying to do. I strongly disagreed with it. In my opinion, like, if you're concerned about riots or something like that, like, people need to be well armed. Like, if you think the house down the road's going to burn down, like, you might want to own a fire extinguisher, and
Right.
and that was the deal. Is like, it just it just seemed kind of ridiculous. But that's just my opinion, of course. But I will say that it does seem like there are some mechanisms in place there that are probably kind of stacked against us a little bit. But I don't think the bulk of it is just out of pure maliciousness. I think a lot of it is just their system just kind of sucks, is some of it too. And it's just sad because I feel like a lot of the people that were really pro-gun there, who were really trying to make changes, they're gone, and so then what do you do?
Well, you're right, because the people who are pro-gun or at least not anti-gun, they're that small minority, and it's hard being that small minority. And it's probably not just the gun issue. It's probably a lot of different issues and interests and cultural things going on there, where maybe if you're that person trying to maneuver working at Facebook and you're like, you know what, this is just a pain, I'm going to kind of move on from that. I think definitely there are some people who are anti-gun. There's also people who just don't know anything about it. And
Yeah.
what you said in that example of the Derek Chauvin thing and shutting everything down, it kind of automatically assumes the negative, the bad. This is something bad with a holster ad, and somehow that's going to cause violence and incite violence. It's wild, and we think of it the other way of like, well, these are 99.99 good people who are buying guns and ammo and they're target shooting and they're concealed carrying. They're not concealed carrying to go rob liquor stores. They're
Yeah.
concealed carrying to protect themselves and their family. And yeah, I'm glad. And you're right. Something else you said I want to come back to is I think it's important to not just walk away from the party and say, oh, whatever, they won't have me here. Well, no, it's BS. And I think we still need to try to work with them and be there. I'll tell a funny story of myself that, and you being the digital guru that you are, you can laugh at me as well. So we're a media company. We don't sell guns. We don't sell ammo. We don't sell holsters or anything like that. And our Facebook account, we would boost certain videos and pieces of content. And yeah, there's guns in them, but we would boost them. And some would get through and be approved, some wouldn't. And what I would do, I considered it a game of whack-a-mole. And so I would just appeal every single thing that got rejected. And then it would be like, no, we reviewed it and it's still rejected. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I just keep doing that and doing that and doing that. Well, guess what? If you get rejected too many times, they say you're a bad actor and they turn off your ability to run any ads, any boosts.
Yeah, that's fun. It's
Pro tip
fun whenever
for everybody
like,
listening.
yeah, it's funny that like, okay, so you made a bunch of mistakes and I'm trying to just point out your mistakes. And so now I'm banned, because
Right.
it was my
Yeah.
fault that happened. It's unfortunate. It's interesting to me that, you know, what difference would that make? What difference would it make you sharing that content out? The people are there to watch what they want to watch. They're going to talk to people they want to talk to. So what I understand it's their platform, and I completely appreciate that. It's a free country and this and that, but it's just unfortunate that I think there's a lot of misconceptions about gun owners and guns, and I think that whenever you're just so uneducated about it that you're making assumptions, you're just making incorrect assumptions. And frankly, it's a conversation that I've had with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, is trying to create a collective of digital marketers in the space to go and to be able to communicate with these people, have some people at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, to be able to go to them and say, like, I don't think you're quite understanding what it is. Let me inform you what this product does or what this content is about, and then maybe that will make you more comfortable with what you're seeing, because frankly, you just don't know.
Right.
And it's I think that's really where it is. Like you said, I'm hard to kill. Like I'm not ready to just give up and just roll over because somebody has a different opinion as mine. Like, I think we got to hang in there, and I think we have to be smart about it. We have to be respectful. We can't just go and scream and scream and scream and then hope that they work with us. But I think that what it's going to take is a lot of us companies getting together and saying, hey, look, like, we just want to talk to you. We just want to tell you what our product's about and help you understand what it is. And frankly, if there's enough customers out there that it makes sense for us to advertise on your platform, then there's a lot of people on there that are interested in our stuff. And if you're so about the people and you're so about your customers and your engagement, then why would you not show them what they want to see?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now speaking of ads, I got a couple more companies to thank for their sponsorship of this. Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by ATN Optics. ATN, you know them for thermal, night vision, and they keep coming out with these really good products at a really great value. So you can get into night vision like the X-Sight 4K Pro, some of those options for $500, $600 in that ballpark. And then you've got thermal options like the Thor LT, which is $1,200 for legit thermal on your rifle. Great for hog hunting, great for a lot of different applications. Check out ATN. Also, Armscor, The latest from Armscor is the STK 100, and it's actually their sister company, Rock Island Armory. This is an all-metal gun, but for the price of polymer. And they really have a heritage in making these 1911s. Obviously, 1911 style pistols are great shooting guns, and they incorporate a lot of those features into this STK 100. A nice beaver tail, a nice grip, and a really nice trigger. I've shot it. Check it out. Armscor, Rock Island Armory. And of course, CrossBreed Holsters. You know them, you love them. They have just a wide variety of holsters, whether you're carrying it in the pocket, on your hip, appendix, whatever that may be. And they keep innovating. You know, they're coming out with the Reckoning holster when you have the mag carrier built into the holster. A lot of people like carrying it that way. And then, of course, all the other accessories like belts and, you know, leather treatments and all kinds of stuff. So check out crossbreedholsters.com. All right. So what's interesting is we're kind of working through this. Have you dealt with any local companies or maybe like a gun store or something like that to help them in how they go about this? I mean, are there any tips or advice for someone who says, well, I've got, you know, a company that builds AR-15s. Maybe there's certain categories where you're like, sorry, man, you're just.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are certainly things that, you know, these social media channels are just not going to let have happen. You know, firearms and ammunition in particular, it's pretty obvious that at this point they're not interested. If you have a company that you're really struggling, a couple of things that I've seen other companies do and that I've seen work are number one is create sanitized landing pages. So if you have products that you really think are probably going to get blocked, create some landing pages that don't have those products on them and just display the products that you think are going to be okay. And Facebook, you know, when they run, they don't go really past that first page, it seems like. And so if you've got something that you know is okay, like you know it's all right, but you know it's going to get flagged or has been flagged in the past, move that item off onto a separate page, create a temporary landing page just to sanitize the items you know Facebook's going to be good with. Another thing is like a lot of people don't realize that there is an actual chat support through Facebook for advertisers. And that has been really beneficial to me because, you know, the appeal process, as you know, is just, it's absurd. You know,
Oh,
you get
dude.
appeal and you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Hail
well,
Mary.
you know, yeah, in 2 months, maybe I'll get a no. And so, you know, that's just takes so much time. And frankly, I think at that point, they just, you know, I don't think they have a lot of interest in paying attention to it. But when you've got that guy there in the chat, a lot of what I have found is I will go and take screenshots of their actual, you know, terms of use policy for advertising of all the things you can and cannot run. And I will go and say, look, you know, this ad was blocked. I need to express to you that CrossBreed Holsters does not sell anything that's on your list that is blocked. All we sell are holsters. Those things are explicitly written into your terms and agreements. Here's a screenshot of your policy showing that these things are okay. And generally speaking, when I do that, I get a lot more favorable results. Occasionally, you know, we'll still get blocked. And fortunately for us, at that point in time, we can reach our concierge and he'll work through the process and he'll talk to you. If he sees something, he's like, yeah, look, dude, that's not okay. Like you've got something on there that
image
legitimately
that's
is blocked.
Yeah.
You know, those sorts of things. And it happens occasionally. But for the most part, you know, he, like our guy is really good about getting in there and just explaining. You know, he's not in there like angry and telling them what to do. He understands that like chances are either A, the bot caught it and didn't understand what's going on, or B, the person that reviewed the appeal probably doesn't understand what the product even is. And so he'll take the time to kind of explain to him. And then generally speaking, you know, probably 75+% of the time the ads will get approved at that point.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of it really is it's just tough because they don't have a lot of interest in communicating. You know, I'm sure that they have, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of advertisers. So I can only imagine how difficult it would be to try to communicate with everyone. But you know, that's really the hardest part. Like if there's something wrong with your car and you're like, hey, my car's broke, you would take it to the lot and you would talk to somebody about it, or you take it to a mechanic and you would explain what's going on. And you just don't have that option on a lot of these platforms. So don't give up. You know, that's the other advice. Like don't roll over. You know, don't just assume you can't do this. Don't say, well, I guess I'll just not advertise. You know, let me tell you, like Google's going to do the same thing. You know, we run through the exact same issues there, and a lot of appeals and things like that and explanations. You know, and if all we're doing is just continuing to say like, well, I guess that's all we've got, like we're not doing our cause any good. We've got to stand up and say, hey, let me just explain what's going on with this product. Let me explain why this product should be approved. Take that time, fight back a little bit, find other people in your little inner circle of advertisers or gun shops or whatever. Talk to them, find out what things that they see are working, and just really working together to try to show a very positive image of the firearm space, I think, is what's going to change the hearts and minds.
Like your mama said, be polite,
Yep.
don't
Carry a
go
big
in there
stick.
yelling at anybody. Now let's talk about something else that's fun. I mean, new guns. We're seeing a lot of new guns coming out. There's new ones on the way for a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people. I think there's a pent up demand because all these gun companies have been so busy just making their bread and butter stuff. In the last several years, what has been, has there been any new guns for you guys that have been a really cool gun that you've gotten to play with, or a holster that was, challenging or different, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and I think what's interesting is, I'm under the same NDAs that you are about all this new stuff coming out, and
Yeah, we can't talk about the
there's
stuff coming.
we can't no, we can't talk about that, but there is some really cool stuff that's coming out, and I think people are going to be really happy with it. And what excites me the most about that is I think that what this industry has struggled with for the last couple of years is what's new. you know
Mhm.
what I call the Gucci Glock thing has gone in and produced some really cool weapons, shadow systems, facts and firearms. Like, these guys have produced some really cool stuff. They've taken a basic Glock platform that's been successful for a long time. It's still a fantastic weapon, and they've just really been able to customize things, give people little pops of color and things like that here and there. But I think the industry as a whole is they're really excited about something new and unique. And I think that it's frankly a little bit of a void in the industry. A lot of companies, especially when they're busy, they're not putting all their time into R&D. They're putting their time into, like, how do we machine as many barrels today as we possibly can?
Right.
They don't need to make new stuff because they're having a hard time just stocking the existing stuff. And so I think what you'll see is, as the industry starts to kind of normalize out a little bit, especially going into next year in the election cycle, that's looking pretty good to have some pro gun people in. I think that you're going to start seeing companies really pushing to get new stuff out. As far as cool new stuff that's out, I'm the big fan, of course, of SIG. I think that they've done an amazing job, not just with their products, but with their marketing. I think the guys over there, I've met them a few times. It's, what they've really focused on is just giving people an experience. They've spared no expense. When you walk into a gun shop that's a big SIG dealer, they've got all these beautiful cases and they're well lit and all these
Mhm.
other things. And their products are really good, and they focused on products that are fun. The MPX series in particular, I think, has been a huge seller, because who doesn't want to go out and rip like 30 rounds of 9mm in a little pistol caliber carbine? Like, it's so
Yeah.
much fun. I think Springfield crushed it with the Hellcat. I think that the mag capacity that came with that, and then them taking the time to design the compensators, optic cuts, things like that into it, was a huge win. That's Hellcats are right there with 365s as our top sellers.
Yeah.
Even surpassing even the traditional top sellers of the Glock, 19s, 1911s, things like that. And so I think what you're seeing is the industry responding to some ingenuity, some new things that are kind of fun and exciting. And as far there's so many good guns out right now. I remember coming into this industry years ago, and it was like, okay, so we got Glocks are cool, and we got XDs are kind of new, and they're okay for now, and then you had just a plethora of 1911s everywhere, which are still fantastic guns. But I think the new stuff that's coming out and the technology that you're going to see being built into these new weapons is really going to change things. I think it's going to be really fun and exciting.
And of course, you guys will have to have them all optics ready, I assume.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing is that I remember, like, back in the good old days, like car CW9s. It's like, okay, like this, it's thin, like it fits nice in the
Mhm.
hand, it's easy to conceal, and I got all like 7 rounds. And now, if you come out with a micro compact pistol that isn't rocking at least like 11 or 12 rounds, like, you might have wasted your time.
I
Like,
know.
people really want that magazine capacity. in those smaller pistols. I remember people back in the day even making like these Franken Glocks where they would take like 19s and 26s and then go and like epoxy, like longer frame additions onto them to get bigger mags in them. And I was like, oh, that is, that's hideous. But hey, man, that's you. And now we're seeing, just these very, very small guns and all this technology built into the mags. You're getting like 13 rounds out of these things easy.
It's
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 crazy.
voodoo. It's voodoo.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they're doing it. Like the guns are
Yeah.
really small. It is funny how they've made it. And I mean, SIG kind of started this, I guess, with the P365 is they've made the mag capacity like one of the very first check marks of, well, how many does it hold? Like
Yep.
if it holds 9, it's just crap. Like why would I even bother with 9? You can't defend yourself against a crackhead with 9.
9.
Like,
yeah. What if there's 13 crackheads?
you're right. Oh man, it's crazy. Yeah, I've liked a lot. I like the red dot craze. I'm still learning. Although I've shot a lot of pistols with red dots, I'm just now starting to carry one with a red dot, and I like it, but I still feel like I need more trigger time to really groove that where it's thoughtless. I put it up, it's there, it's done.
I agree. I think a lot of people when you see red dots, and there's so many good quality red dots out there now between Aimpoint, Trijicon, Springfield and their series. I think that they're going to continue to perfect
Hollison.
that and have. Yeah, I mean, Hollison, like a company that's been around for a while that for the longest time people like just kind of overlooked, and now it's like these guys are really some of the top optics makers in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody they think, especially when they're new to guns, they throw that red dot on there and they're like, oh, it's gonna be like a video game, like boop, done. And it's not that easy. Like it does take some time to adjust to it. I remember when I got my Hellcat, had an optic on it, and I was like, I love the concept of an optic, but it was really the first gun that I had had an optic on. And I remember going to the range and throwing it up there, and I'm like, hang on, wait a minute, like
Oh
where's
yeah.
where's the dot at?
You're
And
doing
it
the
took
chicken
me a
head
little.
dance to try to find the
Yeah,
dot.
and it's definitely not Call of Duty. You're not throwing it up there and there's this giant red dot that magically takes everything out. And so it took me a lot of rounds to get used to it, and now that I'm used to it, I love it. I love it. But it definitely is not as easy as it seems.
Now, video games, I'm not a video game guy, but the video game thing definitely influences the gun world to some degree. And then it certainly influences what people think is true. And we were just having a conversation the other day that there are certain video games where if you put a silencer on a rifle, it makes the bullet go slower on the video game. In real life, it's the exact opposite.
Opposite. Yeah.
But all these Call of Duty experts are like, well, it slows down your bullet. No, it does not.
Yeah, no. Usually, if in real life, if the bullet slows down because there's suppressors, because you're running subsonic ammunition, you're trying to keep it under the 1,100 feet per second, the whole thing.
Right.
But there's not quite that much science probably in Call of Duty. But the one thing I will say about that though, and I think that this gets downplayed, and maybe this is just a personal opinion of mine, but when I grew up around guns. I remember my grandfather taking me out and he laid out a big blanket in the field and dropped down a brick of the, Remington golden bullets or whatever. And it was like, shoot that can until you don't miss, and that's how I started learning guns. And then I was raised around them. They were in my family, the entire time. We deer hunted, we turkey hunted, we dove hunted, we did all the things. And so I was constantly exposed to it. And one of the things that I'll say is like, a lot of the younger shooters coming into the industry right now, they didn't have that. They weren't exposed to guns at a really young age like you and I were. And so their first interaction with, with rifles and pistols are in these games. And so I know that there's a lot, a portion of our industry that's kind of anti against the games. And frankly, I'm the other way around. If that's what it takes to get that guy or that young man interested in firearms to a point where they're going to be a concealed carrier who might have my back someday or might save my life someday, man, I'm all about it. Go play those games. Like that's fine. And I think that what you're going to see is as the industry accepts that more and more, and you see more and more realistic games coming out. I mean, I remember playing Arma a couple of years ago, and I was like, this thing has bullet drop compensation. Like I can't hit anything. I'm just going to sit here and die all day long, And but I think as you see those things come out, like it's actually in some senses it's really good for our industry because it is starting to take young people who otherwise were not interested in guns or were not exposed to guns, and it's giving them at least a fun environment to learn about it. And then what I think you're going to see is a lot of those guys are like, well, I want to go buy this gun that's in Call of Duty. Like
Right.
I'm old enough, I'm 21, I'm 18, whatever the case is. Like I want to go get this gun and I want to learn about it. I'm going to shoot, which is great. Like that's what it's all about. It's not about a bunch of us old guys hanging out just buying up all the guns. Like we've got to start bringing these young people in. We've got to start introducing them to firearms, making them comfortable with it, because that's the next generation. If we
definitely yeah, I mean, it's definitely a window to get them in. You hope that they get into it the right way. You hope that they do kind of go, well, wait, hey guys, I know you're on this system for hours a day, but you could actually go shoot that real gun.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk. I mean, am I a big fan of having people sitting behind a controller for hours and hours at a time? No, like I don't think that's great for kids. But if you're gonna do it regardless, my hope and expectations is that you're at least getting into the industry that I love. You're getting into the things I love that I think are important for you to protect your future family and protect yourself. I got a story in my inbox literally yesterday of a concealed carrier who drew his weapon from a CrossBreed holster and shot somebody, robbing his wife at gunpoint.
Wow.
And that's not the first time we've gotten those stories. It's a couple times a year. Sometimes you'll hear those things. And so, if there's good guys out there, I want them to have guns.
Yeah.
And if they've got to get exposed to it in that way, or airsoft, like I think personally, I think airsoft's another great way to get younger people interested in understanding how it works. Let's do it. Like let's not push them out because it's different than what we're used to. Let's bring them in. Let's support them. Let's get them interested in our industry and get them going.
Yeah, I like it. And you're right. More people, more good people carrying. That's a good thing. Hopefully they're trained up. They know what they're doing. And those real life self-defense cases of uses of guns, it's underreported in the media, but we know it happens every single day in this country.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an unfortunate fact of life. We can set and just assume that we live in this utopian environment where, because we don't hear about it, it doesn't happen. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, for every person that's shot and killed, I guarantee you there is a huge multiplier of people who are saved with guns.
Yep.
But like you said, that doesn't always fit, potentially whatever the kind of agenda is, maybe, or frankly, maybe it just doesn't grab enough attention with people who don't understand how important that is. But it happens every day.
And most times the gun's not even shot. They don't. And then a lot of times because of that, it doesn't even get reported. I mean, there's your friend goes, dude, you'll never believe what happened last week. I had to pull my gun out and the guy ran away. And then did you call the cops? No. So we didn't even know it happened, but it happens so often.
Yeah. I mean, I've been involved in an incident like that where, the gun cleared the holster and the dude took off and bolted and hopefully it was, changed his life around and stopped doing crack. But, it's not something that, I'm going to necessarily call the police on or whatever. Like the situation was handled. The guy took off. Hopefully it was a misunderstanding. Hopefully it gets cleaned up. But you're right. Like those things happen, and they happen a lot more than we probably realize.
Yeah. Nathan, this has been fun, man. Thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. How
do they find out more about you guys, what you're doing?
Yeah, so for CrossBreed, make sure to head over to CrossBreedHolsters.com. For Innate Tactical, it's InnateTactical.com. Anytime, look us up. If you have any questions, give us a phone call, shoot us an email.
Yeah, you probably have a lot of holsters, but you probably could use one or two more. And I like having options. I mean, sometimes I'm carrying Appendix, sometimes I'm carrying in a pocket. Sometimes we're carrying, a different way, and different guns deserve lots of different holsters. So, hey, lots of good options out there. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.